Okay, starting it again from there.
Okay.
um, so how long, or where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Phillips High School, and I graduated in January 1943, and shortly thereafter, I went in the Marine Corps. Actually, when I went in the Marine Corps, I was I was old enough for the draft, and so me and two friends of mine were sent to Anniston to the Fort McClellan, and then we were given a physical up there, and we were given a choice of whether we wanted to go in the Army, Navy, or Marine Corps, and both of them said Marine Corps, and me, I just followed along suit with them, and I said Marine Corps too. And the
That was the
Army
only
guy
reason?
looked at me and he says, "So you sure you want to go in the Marine Corps?" But anyhow, I
Why,
went
why did he say that?
because I was so little, and he thought I was a little bit too small for the Marine Corps, but I went and I made it, and have never had any regrets.
How many years did you serve?
I served 28 years. That's about the time that I put my letter in for retirement, and by then I had 28 years in.
Yeah, that's a good long career.
Yeah.
And I could talk about all points of your career all day, I think. I'm going to focus right now on your World War II service. And what did you kind of take me through that from after boot camp to where'd you go next?
When I got out of boot camp, I went to Camp Pendleton. At that time, it was I went. It was a Marine barracks, and shortly thereafter, they made it a Marine Corps base. And I was stationed at 12B5, and that was the barracks I was in. And I was doing administrative work because I had learned how to type years and years before, and so I was working in the office where the commanding general of the base lived. He lived in the Santa Margarita Ranch, which was just below where we were working, and so I was there for about 6 months, and then the 5th Marine Division was in 1943, and the 5th Marine Division was formed. Actually, the actual date was the first day of January 1944, but actually I was assigned to it just before then, and we were out at Tent Camp 3 at Pendleton, which is way up towards San Clemente from the base there. And they sent me to a school in San Diego, and I was down there for about 3 months. I came back and was assigned to the 5th Medical Battalion, and this was I was with them about, I guess it was somewhere in April of 1944. And then we went we boarded the ship in, I think it was in August of 1944, and went to the Big Island we landed at Hilo and drove jeeps up to the Big Island, up to the Parker Ranch. The Marine Corps had made some kind of a deal with the guy that owned this Parker Ranch, and the 2nd Division had been there prior to our coming there, and they had left and gone to Guadalcanal, so the base was empty. So we were there, were training, getting ready for our next operation, which we didn't, at that time, did not know what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But after we were there, 26th day of December 1944, we started loading ship at Hilo, and we pulled out of Hilo and made maneuvers in Maui, and then they would practice making landings, which is which is real common for that type of operation.
Yeah.
And so, but we managed to we would go into Honolulu and have liberty for a day or two, and then we'd go back out to see more maneuvers, and then the last time we went into Honolulu and had liberty, we come back, got aboard ship, and once we got away from land and hadn't gone very far, we were told that that we were going to Iwo Jima, and they had a big drawing, not a drawing, but a sketch. They had plans. They'd show you what Iwo Jima was like.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize how small it really was. Iwo Jima was in reality was 8 square miles, and we landed on one side of it, which was the side that the Japanese were not expecting us to land, because the best landing area was on the other side. But it was a half a mile wide there where we landed. It's 2.5 miles wide at the other end. So it was a very small island. And of course, Suribachi was right there, right next to where we landed. And we went ashore there and cut the island in two. And the 28th Marines was one of the regiments that was with the 5th Marine Division. They had 3rd Division, 4th Division, and the 5th Division. The 3rd Division was left in reserve. 4th and the 5th Division landed, and it wasn't but just about a week before they called in the 3rd Division too, because the Japanese were not going to give up very easily, and they come through there with flamethrowers, and they turned loose everything at them, and eventually we were told when we left Hilo that the operation would take 10 days. We'd go in and take the island in 3 days and mop up in 2 more days and spend the rest of the time getting ready to get off. Well, we got there on the 19th of February, and we didn't leave until the 27th day of March. So that's a long 10 days.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we had planes that were, people don't understand why it was such a vital place to get. But we had planes that were coming out of Guam that were going all the way to Japan and dropping bombs on Japan. When the Japanese had control of Iwo, when the planes come over close to Iwo, then they would send message to Japan that they were on their way, and they knew about how long it would take to get there, so they had fighter planes in the air, and we were losing a lot of bombers by letting them know that we were coming. So we had been there about four to 5 days, and the airstrip, the #1 airstrip, really was not ready. It had holes all over the field. But there's a bomber that was coming in. It was either going to have to land there or go underwater. And so it come down and landed there. It kind of crashed a little bit, but everybody was saved. Nobody was lost on that particular deal. Mm-hmm. And so it beat putting in the water and hoping that somebody would pick you up. But they made it. And that's the reason why the island was as important as it was. But we took the island and we left there and went back to the Big Island. And we were there for, I guess until, that was just about the time that Franklin D. Roosevelt died in the spring there. Because we saw the flags at half-mast and we heard about it from the captains on the ship, told us that FDR had died. And so when we got into Honolulu, then we dropped off a lot of people at Honolulu that were wounded, that needed medical care, and then the rest of us went on back to the Big Island where we were when we left. And so we were there until, I think it was in late August or first part of September. Then we would board the ship again, headed for Japan, because Japan had already conceded that the war was over. They dropped those two. They dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so we pulled into Japan early one morning there, and in Sasebo, Japan. And when we got there, we knew we were close to Japan, because a lot of people don't know it, but they use human manure for fertilizer over there. And so we could smell this long before we ever got there. It was dark. You
Wow.
couldn't see any land or anything. But we could smell, and we knew we were close. They pulled into the harbor and pulled up to the docks there, and there was nobody there. But finally an old Japanese man come out, and they threw him a light line, and he eventually got somebody else to help him, and they pulled the lines up and tied the ship up to the harbor, and we started unloading the ship. And we spent some time there at Iwo, at Sasebo rather, and then eventually part of our unit went up to Nagasaki. And we were at Nagasaki. Of course, the bomb, that's where one of the places where the bomb had been dropped. And while we went up there, you could see off in the distance, everything was clear, just as flat as it could be, except for one big, tall chimney that never did come down. I don't know what it was, and we never did know anything else about it. But we were there until sometime in around the latter part of December, and we came back to Sasebo, and we were there until eventually I come back to the States. And that's about it for me for World War II is concerned. Because that's when I went to work for Standard Oil Company, and when I eventually ended up with the reserve unit.
Yeah. So when you went to Nagasaki, what was everybody feeling like?
Well, surprisingly enough, the Japanese people, I don't think they didn't really want the war. I don't believe, because they were just as nice and courteous as could be. You couldn't ask. The thing about it is, when we were there, the little kids would jump on the jeeps, and if you had cigarettes, they'd steal them out of your pocket when you wasn't looking. But these things, that's kids, and so most of us kind of accepted that, because we had been around kids for a while.
Yeah.
So we kind of let it go at that, didn't worry about it. And sometimes we had some of these chocolate bars that come in K rations, and we'd give one of them a little chocolate like that, and they enjoyed that, and they were always asking for something. But it wasn't that bad. I had no real bad feelings about the Japanese. I just knew they made a mistake, and they paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if they hadn't bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, we would have invaded the island of Japan.
Yeah.
In December of 1945 is when we would have been invading Japan. Because I know I saw some plans where that the Marines, about 3 divisions were going on one side to draw them away, and the Army was going in on the other side. So it would have been a massacre for the Japanese. Their whole islands, all those islands would have been completely destroyed. But it's interesting. I've been back to Japan any number of occasions when I was in Okinawa in 1961 and 62. We were in Japan in Yokosuka, and we went up there for training for in the fall in the Christmas time, because that was the cold weather. We went up to the big old mountain. I can't remember the name of that thing. It's so cold up there. We had maneuvers around it, and if you had a canteen with water, you better put it in your sleeping bag with you, because if you didn't, the next morning you got up, it'd be frozen solid.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have no water to drink till it thawed out. But it was, it's just one of those things of war, and I have no regrets for ever being in the Marine Corps. I think it's good. I think everybody should have an opportunity to spend a little time in service and know a little bit of what goes on in this world.
Yeah.
War, it's a different ball game today than what it was back then. As we all know, people in the overseas now, they can get on the phone and call their family back home in about 30 seconds or so and talk with them. During World War II, we sent a letter back, and it took about a week or 10 days, sometimes 2 weeks to get there. And we asked a question about something, and the time we got the answer back, we'd forgot what we asked, because it was so long getting the answer back. So we just had communicated by, of course, everybody, all your mail was censored back then. When we wrote a letter, the officers went through it to check, see what we said in there, to make sure that we never said anything that was wrong. One thing I would like to mention while I'm thinking about it, when we come off of Iwo, going back to the Big Island, I went to Aniwetok. My brother was in the Navy, and he was stationed aboard an ARB-4. That's an auxiliary repair boat. That's what they do, is ships that got problems with the engines and stuff that need to be rewound and stuff like that. Then he was an electrician, and he did that kind of work. And so I had found out by some shape, form, or fashion, I don't know how, that he was there. So I went to the XO. I was going to the XO. I went to the officer of the deck on the ship I was on. And I was asking him if I was some way I could get ashore, see if I could locate my brother. And about that time, the XO stepped up and wanted to know what was going on. And I told him my brother was aboard an ARB-4 there in the harbor, and I didn't know where he was at, and I'd like to be able to go ashore and see if I could find him. And he turned to the officer of the deck and he says, "Get a coxswain to give this boy a boat, and tell this coxswain to get out there and see if he can find that ship that his brother's on, and he see if he can spend a little bit of time with him." And so we roamed around out there, and we was just about to give up, and the coxswain says, "I see a boat over here, a ship over here's got a 4 on it." So we pulled up by that, and unbeknownst to me, my brother was standing in the chow line up there on that ship. And one of the guys told me after I went aboard, said, he turned to the guy and said, "I'll be damned, there's my brother down there." And so I went aboard ship, and he came down to the officer of the deck, and I went in and had lunch with him and spent about 45 minutes or so, and then I had to get back with the coxswain to go back to my ship. But I thought that was a really decent, nice thing that the XO of that ship did.
Very nice.
We hadn't seen each other in quite some time.
That's right. Gosh.
So that don't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
In a wartime basis. That's about it for me.
Tell me a little bit more about Iwo Jima and when they raised the flag.
Okay. Now, actually, they raised the flag on December the, on February the 23rd, as you know, we went on the 19th. That's Deepwater 4 is the 23rd of February. Now, everybody didn't go ashore on the 19th. That's because you couldn't get that many ashore that quick.
Yeah.
They went ashore at 9 o'clock that morning. But I didn't go ashore. They didn't want me ashore until February the 23rd. And I was standing aboard at the railing on the ship, getting ready to go down a rope ladder to the ship down there that had a jeep and a trailer that I was supposed to take ashore. And I saw that flag go up over Iwo. And later on I found out that they not only that they took that small flag down and put a bigger one up later. And so when I got in that LCM and I went to the island there and they dropped the ramp, I cranked the engine up and I pulled that Jeep with the trailer, pulled it off of the LCM, and that ship, I had it in four-wheel drive, and all four wheels were spinning, because the ash is so thin that you couldn't drive on it. But fortunately, the engineers had fixed this up. They put some metal railings down where you could run on, and they had a Caterpillar that pulled my Jeep up there and put it on the ramp so I could drive it on off to where it was supposed to go. And so I was there, and our hospital was located right there at the base of the first airfield.
Okay.
And so that was part of our job as a Marine, to help put the hospital up, to help guard the hospital, and things of this nature. And some of us drove jeeps to pick up wounded and brought them back to the hospital. And the best thing, one of the nicest things that happened, a couple of nice things happened. They had a raid there one night, and we slipped up. The officers had better rations than we did. We stole some 10-in-1 ration from the officers supplied up there. And we had their ration was fried bacon, and you could fry that bacon, and had baked beans. You could open that can and eat baked beans. We had cave rations, and if you don't know what cave rations are, there's a little can of ham, about a real small can, and you take it, put holes in it, and you try to heat it. You heat it for about 30 minutes in hot water, and then you open it up, and it's still cold right in the middle. And they had a little package of cheese in there, which I don't eat cheese, and they had a little bar of a chocolate bar in there, and that was our rations. But we stole a big can of coffee grounds, about a great big can of it. We got us a big bucket, filled it with hot water, and filled that thing up, put some coffee grounds in there, and made some hot coffee, and poured a little bit of cold water in there, get the grounds to settle to the bottom, and a whole bunch of us sitting there drinking the coffee. But you couldn't dig a foxhole. You had to build a foxhole, because the ground was so soft and the ashes were all over the place. There was no vegetation there at that particular time. Now, and I don't think this is not during my time in service, but I did go back in 2015, and they had
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
in 2015 we went back there, and they had a small golf course, a 9-hole golf course on that island.
Really?
The Japanese owned the island then. We had to have a passport to get aboard. And so we went back up to top of Suribachi, and we had about 5 hours there. We flew from Guam up there to get on the island. But it interesting. They had a big ceremony there. Japanese officials came down to Iwo, and a lot of officials from the Marine Corps, from the military, and from the United States government were there on that same day. This was in March of, I don't remember the exact date, but it was in March of 2015. But it was a nice visit there, and we spent 13 days over there going around Guam, Saipan, Tinian, and seeing the places. Saw that, as a lot of people don't know, but the plane that would drop those bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they left from not Saipan but Tinian.
Mm-hmm.
They got a runway over there on Tinian that's got the name for it, and we saw all of that. Saw where the bombs were held in shelter until they were loaded aboard a plane, and it was kind of interesting to go back after all these years.
I bet it was.
Yeah. So.
Did you play golf?
No. No. We weren't there long enough to play golf, but it was interesting. We had a bunch of, I don't know how many people there. In our one group there, it was 25 of us, but there was another group of military personnel from the United States that were there also. And so there was a bunch of them was up there. And so we had a nice visit up there. They had the Commandant of the Marine Corps was there. And so he made a long speech at the ceremony that they had there that day. But
I bet that was a very special time for a lot of people to see you veterans there again.
I'm sure, I know it was. It was really special for me. I had, truth of the matter is, I had been back there before. I went in 1970 when I was in Okinawa. I was with the Recon Battalion there, and the commanding general of the 3rd Division wanted to know if any veterans that were at Iwo wanted to go back on the 19th of February. Well, we flew back down there on the 19th of February, and we were there for about 2 or 3 hours. Mm-hmm. The Japanese had little sandwiches and stuff for us there, and they had a kind of little truck that they took us all up to the top of Suribachi. Now, it was not fixed the same way that it was when I was there in 2015. They had monuments up there in 2015, but they didn't have nothing up there in 1970. 1970 was the 25th anniversary.
Okay.
Because it was 1945, 1970, it was 25. Yeah. But it was, we had a nice group that went down there. So, anything else that I can throw in, I don't remember it. I have to think about them.
I think that's about it. You have any particular stories about any of your buddies there during World War II? Good, bad, funny? Besides stealing K-rations?
Well, no, not too much. I know we got false alarm that the war in Europe was over with, and everybody was shooting guns off up in the air while we was at Iwo, but that didn't last long. We found out that was false alarm.
Oh, yeah, it was a couple of months early.
Yeah. Yeah. So.